So last night I took some 5-MeO malt on the full moon. It was 14 milligrams, so a decent dose, but nothing crazy. And I was exploring this newly acquired item of mine called a dorje or a Vajra. And I wanted to share the experience because I think if there are other people out there interested in entheogens and mysticism, then this Vajrayana aspect of Buddhism can be an exciting and wonderful, promising aspect of mysticism for you to explore. So it's a bit hard for me to actually explain what I want to, because by its very nature it's very abstract and mystical, but I shall do my best. Now first of all, just to give a bit of a ground laying here, a bit of a framework, let's talk about the Vajrayana aspect of Buddhism, because mostly Buddhism, I perceive it to be quite secular, especially Zen. You sit and you meditate, and it doesn't emphasize mystical experiences. But the Vajrayana form of Buddhism is quite different because they fully embrace aspects of mysticism such as Tantra and even the occult. But it's wonderfully balanced with a deep spirituality to bring us back to the heart. And I think that is what this Vajra in a way symbolizes, and what we can gain through this Vajrayana practice. Taking all our complex tantric and occult forces within our energy system and balancing them perfectly at the heart in a way that is stable. So how that was being expressed for me, or how I was finding that last night during my 5-MeO malt experience, was, to give a bit of background, for the past couple of months I have been sort of little bit integrating and exploring, but even struggling, you could say, about some tantric desires I've been having, because a particular woman came into my life, and I don't know why, but for some reason, maybe it's related to smell, I have this huge tantric attraction towards her that I didn't even know was possible. And it's the type of tantra that makes the hair on your spine rise up. A huge attraction. But to simplify a bit of a convoluted story, it's not going to happen for the foreseeable future. And for such life situations when you're interested in someone but it's not being reciprocated, of course we should try and just let it go and not obsess, move on in life. But I was almost feeling guilty, or like there was something wrong with me, because it's been a couple of months, and still, if I'm being honest with myself, my tantra is wanting that particular person. And it's almost funny. I would be at the beach, and I have a small puppy at the moment, and we would be walking along the ocean, and girls in their early 20s in bikinis would come to me laughing and giggling and petting the dog and just be interested in my energy. But on a tantric level, I'm not interested in this gorgeous 20-year-old babe, because my tantra just wants that other person. And it's even a heart attraction. So I didn't really know what to do with my internal energies, because it's confusing. Why are you interested in this one person when there's a whole ocean out there of other fish, metaphorically speaking? But at the same time, suppressing the desire didn't feel like it was helping. It's been a couple of months and I haven't been able to just let it go. So first of all, when I took this 5-MeO malt, I was just looking at the object, and what sort of spontaneously happened was I was allowing my desire for this person to come up fully, but I managed to not attach a big story to it. And I symbolically, or energetically rather, almost in a literal way, let all this desire boil up inside me, and I put it at the center of the dorje. Now, on a tantric level, on an animalistic level, when we want something like candy, what do? We grab and we want it. But if you take an object like this, because it's hard, it's brass, and it's got pointy bits all over the place, if you try and grab it, it actually hurts, because there's all these sharp, hard, pointy bits. And on a level that's hard to explain, but on an animalistic tantric level, awareness was coming up, a transformation was happening, that's not going to work. That's just causing pain and suffering. And instead, if you want to hold a desire that in a way that doesn't hurt, we can balance the dorje perfectly. or hold it in a way that is controlled, elegant. And what this was allowing me was to fully appreciate the energy at the heart, because the heart also feels like a very balanced energy. And as I was allowing this desire for something I really, really want, what I was being balanced with was this deep, genuine, also desire to give the other person free will. And indeed, the other person's free will on a tantric level, an animalistic level, was more important to me than actually having the other person in my life. So that was a beautiful thing, because on an animalistic level, I was able to access this genuine loving of giving someone free will, and that was deeply satisfying. It was like all this tension was released because I found something that I loved and wanted more than the other person, which was to give the other person free will. So I hope that makes some sort of sense. Now, where did all of that information come from on a tantric animalistic level? Well, what I was essentially doing was simply playing around with the dorje in my hands, and like I said, exploring the squeezing aspect. But then as you let go and hold it more elegantly, these aspects of love were coming up about giving someone free will and not forcing one's wants and squeezing too hard. So if you shake a dorje, it almost becomes liquid if you look at it visually. I suppose especially if you're on 5-MeO MALT, it becomes visual, and it can rotate around the central point. And I was finding it very interesting to explore with the dorje like this, because you can hear there's a bit of a ringing. And just do all sorts of random intuitive motions with it, feel the heft and weight of the object. And there's not really much I can say about why that would be so profound, except that I encourage you to do it if it's something that sort of interests you on an intuitive level. Now, moving on a little bit, something else I also found very interesting about the dorje was I was reflecting on the beach. And I won't go into a long story, but it was a beautiful night because I was there with a friend. She was sharing some of her heavier emotions. I was sharing my emotions as well. It's very authentic. We were there with the dog. The dog was digging holes in the sand and we were sitting in the warm sand. We were watching the moon rise up. There was some drumming nearby, so we danced a little bit. And it was just a generally wonderful experience. But again, this balanced aspect of the dorje was allowing the heart to come up and deeply appreciate the gems in life that we are given. Because normally, like I said, because I have this desire, I want to make a whole video about this topic of desire actually. The desire distracts us from enjoying the gems in life that we are given. Why wasn't I able, while I was sitting at the beach, to fully enjoy and be blissed out in nirvana? A moment where I'm sitting at the beach with a puppy and a friend, openly talking about authentic emotions, watching the moon rise. That is what life is about. And I was allowing that to just be seen and felt, the deep appreciation, love and gratitude for life, even though there's one specific desire that hasn't been achieved yet. Okay, so that was another really interesting aspect of the dorje for me. Yeah, I had one more thing that I wanted to share about the dorje, the Vajra, and that is a interesting ability that the object has to induce kriya, which is purification. And an interesting aspect of kriya that I've experienced now for many years is you might have a particular thought or belief, and when it gets released, the body actually twitches. And it's very interesting because that twitching is perfectly accompanied by a visual. So for instance, you might have a visual of a belief that, just to be totally silly, that I'm a human being, but then you might realize that actually I am not a human being, I'm pure consciousness and pure energy. And as you have that thought, that realization on a visual level, on an auditory level, perhaps a muscle in the leg actually twitches and it feels like something has been released inside of you. And this dorje was very much doing that at a visual and a physical level. Because later on, after I had experienced most of this, the 5-MeO MALT, after it had worn out mostly, I was lying down and still, because I'd been looking at it and this object is shiny, I was seeing the dorje on a visual level, on an energetic level, and as thoughts were coming up, it was like the dorje was just floating in the background and deconstructing the karma, the beliefs, the energy networks. And as that was happening, a lot of twitching was happening in the body, and it just felt generally very healing. But also on a physical level, what I found very interesting is you can use this object to gently tap, because it's quite sharp and hard, but tap on sensitive points of the body and find sort of places where you are ticklish and where twitches can happen. Now, you do this very gently, but I was surprised to find how much energy was being relaxed as I was pushing in around the Manipura and Swadhistana areas. And again, it's a bit intuitive, tantric in nature, but it felt genuinely healing, genuinely releasing. And this whole experience reminds me of a quote that I've heard, and that is, or the saying, I'll paraphrase it here. I think it was by Shinzen Young. He said something similar to, the purpose of spirituality, it is not to attain and experience some particular state of consciousness. It's to scrub away and remove the barriers to that state of consciousness, because that way we can experience these high states of consciousness at all time. So this kriya aspect of the dorje was very strong, allowing energies that are frayed and going all over the place to be integrated and balanced at the center and at the heart, and at the same time deconstructing energies and letting ones go that we can just remove from the body entirely. So my hope is that if you do explore this topic, then you can find for yourself this balanced state where the heart is almost on a knife edge, perfectly balanced like a seesaw, and find that steady, stable aspect of love.